baby girl right there. Ooh, she with her friends. I'm a dog, I ain't shit. I'ma wind up hitting her friends. Bad guy, outlaw. Ooh, I'm like Pac, but I ain't die after the second time I got shot.
What's up? This is your boy Tico Trend, aka the dark skin Tico, and this video is going to be about are women the prize? Are women the prize? Is basically what this video is going to be about, and I want everybody to take a moment to understand the whole entire gravity of this question, so they can be able to unpack this question for all intents and purposes. So it's one of those things where like you have to be able to fully unpack this question and actually take it head on without being or seeming like you're being hostile for all intents and purposes. It's kind of funny, but it's kind of cute. It's kind of a cute question that keeps coming up every now and again, especially when women are pushing the question. So it's one of those things where you have to understand the complexity of the question and the history behind the question and a lot of other different things that actually go into the actual question and questioning of if women are actually the prize. At the end of the day, when it comes down to it, if you look at history and you look at now, the answer is pretty much no. They're not the prize. Because at the end of the day, like I was saying in one of my videos, when have you ever heard a guy happy to get married? When have you ever heard a guy saying, I can't wait to get married? Usually it's like a long and deliberate walk, like he had committed a crime and he got the coat over his head and they're arresting his ass. It's usually just, you know, it's just long and deliberate, basically, at that point in time. Because there's no man that's willing to actually, there's no man alive that's happy to be married or happy to be, happy to be, happy to be in a lot of the relationships after a certain amount of time. I mean, he puts up with it and he deals with it because that's typically what men do. You get into some shit, you pretty much see it through. Or you get into some shit, you pretty much try your best to, make it work or fix it. It's typically how a lot of men think and work. So it's one of those things where it's like, at the end of the day, it's one of those things where like you as a man have to realize that women aren't really the prize. Women are nothing more than an accessory to a man. That's all they are. An accessory is supposed to actually help their man. When have you actually seen a woman? Very few women in this world actually help their men or help their men grow. The sad part about that, a lot of women show up at the end after the man did all the growing and he gets all the fucking money. It's typically how that works. So in all technicality, how are you the prize when in fact you show up after the fact that all the money was earned and all the money is gotten? You can't be a prize if you're not showing up in the beginning or you're not willing to put in the actual work to help your man build. Because like I said, for all intents and purposes, women are nothing more than an accessory to men. They'd be basically like, the centerpiece at the wedding. Or, they're basically an accessory. That's all they really are. They're nothing more than an accessory. Their job is basically to help their men grow. I mean, it might sound mean, but I look at it like this. Even if you have a job as a woman, your job is still to help your household and your man grow as a human being. Your job's there to be supportive and this, that, and the other. If you want somebody to be supportive in you, you still have to be supportive in them. You can't call them out their name and talk shit on them and expect them to support you. That's typically how that works. Because the sad part about that is, if you were to do that to your best friends, they would still probably be your best friends, but you probably be catching a lot of shade from your best friends. That's simply how it works. Or you probably wouldn't be best friends with that person very much longer. It's pretty much how it works. So it's one of those things that, as a man, you have to understand the situation that you're getting yourself into for all intents and purposes. So it's one of those things at the end of the day where you literally have to literally analyze the situation you're in. Because I look at it like this: if she's not helping you grow, and she happened to show up after all your growth is done, she's really not the prize. She's not the prize in the least bit. You're actually the prize for the fact that you already had this stuff, and there's no way in hell she could make it better for the fact that she's just giving up pussy. That's pretty much all it really is. Like, she just showed up after everything was gotten. It'd be no different than, good example, that would be an opportunist. That's the best way to describe it. It'd be no different than opportunist if you're coming from that method or direction. Basically, what happens with that is you will. Let's just say you got all this stuff. You didn't get all this stuff. You done fought your way to this. You done fought your way to this point. You done fought your way through all the bullshit and the BS, and you finally got everything that you ever wanted in life. Now your body's beaten and tired and broken, and all of a sudden now a woman comes in and she takes your shit away, and you can't defend yourself basically because you're out cold or you're incapacitated. It'd be no different than WWE wrestling basically with the Money in the Bank, the Money in the Bank briefcase basically. The person that went through a whole entire fight and shit like that got their ass whooped, can barely stand, damn near unconscious, and you cash your Money in the Bank card basically just so you can take the title basically easily. That's pretty much how that works. Most of the times, that's how the Money in the Bank titles. That's how the titles are actually won when you get the Money in the Bank. Money in the Bank match for all intents and purposes. That's typically how that shit works. You're nothing more than an opportunist. It's not like you tried to fight somebody up straight up. Basically, you basically had to use every tactic to prop yourself up so you can actually win when you know you can't beat or win, or you didn't have anything or bring anything to that table for all intents and purposes, which is sad. And that's basically how this stuff works. Women do this stuff on a regular basis. And the sad part about that, there's not too many women that are willing to actually grow with their men. There are a lot of women who, come in after the fact. There are a lot of women that do that shit. And the sad part about that is a lot of men fall for this shit and get caught up in this bullshit when it comes to women, for the fact that, well, she's so beautiful. Okay, does she have anything besides beauty? She's beautiful? No. Does she have anything besides beauty? Because at the end of the day, always harken back to the TFM comment. The TFM mic drop moment. What is it that outside of babies, having a baby, what is it that a woman offers you that you can't get from a dog, your friends, and a hooker? And if you're into that, a sex doll. If you're into that, that is a sex doll. What is it that a woman can offer you outside of pregnancy that you can't get from a hooker, your dog, and your best friends? Like, think about that, really. Think about that. And any argument that they use outside of sex, any argument they use outside of pregnancy is null and void. They'll say, well, stability. I can have stability with a dog. Companionship, dog. Camaraderie, friends, and dog. It's like, so it's one of those things where it's like, she's really not serving you any value if she's not there from the beginning. If she's not helping you build, if she's not there from day one, she really serves you no value. Or if she's not at least there in the middle, she's really serving you no value. That's pretty much how this shit works. And even women that show up in the middle is kind of questionable once you actually think about it. Because if a woman's showing up in the middle, it's one of those things where you have to really question that. If a woman's just showing up in the middle. Because at the end of the day, it's one of those things where you have to realize that, or question yourself, is she really there for me? Or is she there for herself? So this is one of those many questions you're always going to have to ask yourself as a man. Is she there for me? Or is she there for herself? The sad part about that, a lot of men fall into this trap not knowing that she's not really there for him. She's there for herself. Because the sad part about that is at the end of the day, in this day and age, women are pretty much opportunists, waiting to happen for all intents and purposes. It's basically like, they're waiting for you to be at your most vulnerable, and then they pretty much take advantage of you and dip out on you like a thief in the night. That's pretty much how a lot of women act, or pretty much do men. And they always wonder why. I don't understand why I can't find a man. I don't understand why you believe that you. I don't understand why you can't believe that you can't find a man. Did you ever do some self-reflection? Maybe self-reflection usually works. When you do something. But the sad part about that is they don't even do that. And that's one of the many topics that I wanted to cover in this podcast is their ability not to be able to self-reflect on anything they do, or anything that could probably better them, that they would have to look into themselves to actually do. They tend to always overlook or sweep under the rug or blame on somebody else for all intents and purposes. It's typically how that works. So the topics for today is why or why not is when why or why not women are the prize. Um, women are survivalists. Basically, women are survivalists for all intents and purposes. They're, they're what I mean by that before everybody goes off the deep end is they basically survive by another person for all intents and purposes. Historically, short term thinking, obviously, can't take responsibility, and my afterthoughts for all intents and purposes is the topic. So the sad part about the whole entire thing when it comes to women is their overall ability to not take responsibility for any of their actions, or their ability to pass responsibility for their actions onto a man or another person or an inanimate object, basically, to actually avoid taking any responsibility. Because at the end of the day, one of the many things that I've learned about women, that you would ever learn about women, and I've learned about women over the many fucking years, over all my life, for all intents and purposes, women don't want to have to take responsibility because that will require them to actually do some self-reflection if they take some responsibility. The sad part about that, in the Western world, is set up to the point where she really doesn't have to take responsibility. In a lot of third world countries, you're going to take the responsibility. It's going to hurt, and it's really going to suck when reality sets in for all intents and purposes. Whereas in the Western world, women are so coddled that they believe that they're oppressed, when in fact you have more privileges than any other women in any other countries outside of the Western world. It's like you can't say you're oppressed when in fact you're a spoiled brat. Because if you ever notice what a lot of the people in Western worlds, they'll talk about how oppressed they are, but they'll overlook the fact that certain countries, women are dying in numbers, or women are women are you know women women don't have the same rights as them, so they believe, despite the fact that all the rights that they had before all this whole entire mess popped off, there's a lot of women that don't have these rights, but they don't want to look at that for the fact that that requires them to do some self-reflection. And the sad part about that, they'll try to paint it under the guise of, well, religion, or you got to respect their religion, or you got to respect this, or it's just a cultural thing. But you want to destroy your own culture, but you want to preserve the culture of another country altogether, but you want to destroy your own culture for all intents and purposes and take it down a dark path, or a dark road, and do you wonder why you're in half the messes you're in? Like, think about that, really. You can't sit up here and tell me you don't understand why you can't do something, where you can't find a man, or you can't do something, when in fact you're the very person who's putting yourself in a very predicament that you're having a problem with. Or should I say, you're the one that's putting yourself in a very conundrum that you're actually having a problem with finding or doing. That's typically how this works. Because at the end of the day, if the minute you can actually reflect on yourself is the minute you can actually understand why your life isn't going the way it should go. Instead of actually blowing smoke up your ass, or having people always trying to be your yes man and blow smoke up your ass, it's one of those things where, like, you got to take responsibility for your actions. Because if you can't, you're going to find out very quickly and very swiftly that it's not a pretty sight. It's not a pretty sight. And when you get older, and the sad part about that, I've noticed with women, they realize all the shit that they did later in life. It's like when you were younger, it's like you thought you were invincible. You thought everything's going to go forever, and you thought everything was, all the music was never going to stop. Then you get older, the music starts slowing down, and bones start creaking, joints start creaking, and your body starts leaking, and it's like one of those things where it's like, okay, maybe I should have took better care of myself when I was younger. Because at some point, it's like one of those things where it's like I said, I've seen a lot of college girls who are barely 20 or barely 23 that look like they're in their fucking 40s. And that's the life you live. If you live a hard life, we're going to see that in you in your later years, for all intents and purposes. And the sad part about that, there's a lot of college girls that look like they're in their 30s. Hell, I've seen an 18-year-old college girl. She looked like she's like 28. She literally looks like she's 28 already. And there's another one that's like, 17. She looks like she's 30. It's like, what are you doing with your life, and what are you doing with your skin to age yourself that badly? What are you doing with your life in general, and what are you not doing to take care of your body to make yourself make it better for yourself for all intents and purposes. So it ends up being one of those things where it's like you have to be able to self-reflect to understand how you're destroying your body and how you're destroying a commodity, which is beauty, for later dating years. Because like if you ever notice, like a lot of the older women in society, they tend to wear like a lot of the older women like black and most of the older black women, the older ones. I mean the real older ones, not the fake older ones, the older ones, and like some of the white older women. You got also some of the white Latinas. I mean, some of the older Latinas. They tend to wear a scarf around their head instead of like wearing a shit ton of makeup, or like they'll wear a scarf and they'll wear like Vaseline on their face. If it's cold outside for all intents and purposes, and it's basically to protect yourselves skin from the elements. This is typically how you age your skin a lot better by not adding more shit to it that you really don't need. A lot of these women don't really drink ridiculously like these college kids do, and they wonder why their body's catching up to them, or they wonder why they're rapidly aging before they even hit the wall. And the sad part about that, if a man thinks you're like 30, he's not going to want to date you. Or if a man thinks you're older than what you really are, he's not going to want to date you. And that's typically how a lot of this stuff works. So it's one of those things where, like, you as a human being have to realize that you put yourself into this mess, and you have to understand that, it's one of those things where, like, you have to do some self-reflection. Because if you don't do any self-reflection, you're going to get a reality check later. You're going to be one of them women with cats, being mad at men because nobody picked you, basically. Meanwhile, you're the one that didn't pick anybody, and this is how you ended up in the mess you in. Because the sad part about that, at the end of the day, it's all about making a proper choice. Men aren't going to sink money into a sinking ship unless they know they can make it afloat. And the sad part about that is it all comes down to a risk assessment analysis. If you're worth more than what you bring to the table, there's no point in investing in you. Because the sad part about that, a lot of women forget this shit, and it's like, you have to take on me and my kids. Wait, like, especially a lot of the women on the dating sites, like, you're pregnant, you have one, the other one is barely like a year old, you're already having another one on the way, and where's your baby daddy again? But you're looking for somebody to date you long term. So basically, you basically want a benefits package. Gotcha. So it's one of those things where it's like, a lot of men aren't willing to take on somebody else's children. There's a small select group of men who are willing to do that. The sad part about that is, a lot of times, a lot of women overlook those men. It's just facts. And you always, well, I want somebody that do this, that, the other, and this, that, the other. You got to know your own lane. You can't be trying to drive outside your lane. Just because you got a dick from one time from some random person, that don't make you more valuable than what you need to do, what you really are. And the sad part about that, the cold hard truth about it, once you actually think about it and boil it down, women actually initiate more abuse than men do. Women are more abusive in a relationship than men are. Not only are they more abusive in a relationship than men are, they cheat just a bit more than men do. And like I said in my other video, just because you didn't get caught doesn't mean you're not cheating. It's that simple. Just because you didn't get caught, that doesn't mean you're not cheating. So I'm gonna need you to take that logic and throw it over in a corner and set it on fire, because that's not how this works. Just because you didn't get caught, that doesn't mean you're not cheating. Because women cheat more than men at the end of the day for that very reason. Because just because you didn't get caught and you're not willing to tell your significant other and he didn't find out, that don't mean it didn't happen. And it's typically women's logic when it comes to that stuff. Because the sad part about that, women are more likely to cheat than men. In a long-term relationship, women are more likely to cheat than men. Because women have more options, men have very little options at the end of the day. Then on top of that, as long as a man is fulfilled and content in his relationship, he's less likely to cheat than a woman. If he's not fulfilled and content in his relationship, it's your fucking fault. That's simply how it works. It's like the famous running joke when it comes to Bill Clinton. Had his wife been doing her job, he wouldn't have to get sloppy toppy from somebody else. It's that simple. Had his wife been doing her job, he wouldn't have had to get sloppy toppy from anybody else. It is what it is. She dropped the ball. She should have been on it. and she wasn't. It's that simple. So it's one of those things where it's like, if you can't be a proper wife, how can I trust you to run a country? You can't even manage your house. How can I trust you to run a country when you can't even manage your own damn household? It's one of those things that you have to look at as a human being, because like I look at it like this. I'm all fan for a woman being a president. However, for me to actually select you and pick you, you have to be able to manage your own household. You can't be one of them people that, that's been on welfare all your life and now all of a sudden you're running for president, or, or you've been getting public assistance or some type of, you've been mooching off the government and all of a sudden now you want to run for president. That doesn't show me that you're a strong, capable person. What that shows me is you're a person that can't stand on their own 2 feet. It's pretty much what that. So I don't trust you to actually have the keys to a castle if you can't even manage your own. You can't even manage your own small castle. So it's one of those things where it's like, I can't trust a woman, or women or men who run for president that have women that can't take control of their own children. Like if your children are out there acting fucking a fool, then you mismanage your children. And you don't deserve to manage the White House. It's typically how I feel about that. Like, no, you don't. Like a good example of that is, so people won't be saying I'm picking on, Hillary Clinton, the Bush twins, are a great example of that shit. Like if you can't manage your own household or manage your own children and they're out there getting in fuck all, then you don't deserve to manage the White House, or you don't deserve to manage the country. It's typically how I feel about that. That goes for anybody. If your children are out there acting a straight fucking fool, you need to step down as the president because you're not fit to lead if your children are acting a straight fool. It's pretty much how I feel about that. And it's one of those things where like you have to be able to take that on and look at that or be able to spin it and deal with it as it's going on, or deal with it and nip it in the butt before it even fucking happens. If you can't do that, then you don't deserve it. So it's one of those things where it's like, I typically pick people based on their family dynamic or their family structure. Don't get me wrong. I look at people's like past history and their time running as governor or senator and things like that, or congressman. I look at all that stuff too. But at the end of the day, just so I can actually get a complete picture of the person, I look at their personal life. And if their personal life is all fucked up or out of whack, then it's like I can't vote for that person. I'm sorry. I just can't vote for that person. If you made a lot of bad decisions during your voting as a congressman, governor, or a senator, I basically can't vote for you, because it's one of those things where it's like either you flip flop or you're not too sure of yourself in the first damn place. And you're basically trying to either A, go with the crowd or be popular, or you're B, you really don't stand for any fucking thing. Or what you stand for doesn't really fit what I have as a narrative and better myself in the future for all intents and purposes is usually how it works. The sad part about that, you have a lot of people who are not willing to reflect on themselves and better themselves, or reflect on themselves and have that conversation with themselves to better themselves for all intents and purposes. Because the sad part about that is, even in history, women have never been the prize. Even in history. Even if you go back to old days India or old days Africa, women were never the prize. Women were such not the prize that people used to literally give away stuff just so you could marry their fucking daughter. Like, let that shit sink in. Fathers and families used to give away shit just so you can marry their daughter. This is how much of a prize women aren't in history. This is pretty much how all marriages got fucking started. It was nothing more than an arranged marriage where their family basically gave away a shit ton of shit so their family could look appealing to that person's son and family to decide if they want to marry that person. Like, a lot of it was arranged, but some of it was one of those things where it's like, oh, you want to marry my daughter? I give you this, I give you that, I give you this. Is that enough for you to marry my daughter? Like, think about that shit. Think about that shit. I mean, and you can argue the opposite for, cultures where men actually gave away a lot of stuff, but at the end of the day, women gave away more stuff in those cultures too. So it's one of those things where it's like, men gave away stuff for that family, and that family in turn gave away stuff back to that man. So it's one of those things where it's like it's kind of sort of null and void. So that's a different situation, a different scenario. And it's one of those things where, like, you have to accept that about yourself as a woman. If you fuck up your life, you can't sit up here and say you're the prize. If you fuck up, if you fuck up your younger years and fuck up your youth and beauty, you really can't say you're a prize. Because at the end of the day, and this is typically how women base their lives, basically, and it's the funniest shit in the world. All because this one person that happened to look good had sex with them once. They believe that they're worth more than what they really are, when in fact they're not. That person just needed to have sex. Are you with that person? Did you have multiple dates with that person? Then that person, you didn't really date that person. That person just needed a hole to stick his dick in. And that's pretty much all you really were as a woman, is a hole from to stick his dick in. That's it. Because he didn't feel like putting in the work to get a woman on his level or just below. So he decided it's easier just to stick his dick in you and call it a day, and bust and release for all intents and purposes. This is pretty much where the pump and dump thing comes from. Nothing more than he needed to stick his dick in something and have a release. It's basically like the John Wick term, catch and release. Basically, you catch it, you release it to a group of people, basically, so they can come and collect on it. That's simply how that works. And the sad part about that is women don't seem to understand that or grasp that whole entire concept that you are nothing more than a hole to him. But you believe you're more valuable because he slept with you on some off chance. Is he sleeping with you now? Is he calling you up to sleep with you some more? Then you were nothing more than a hole to stick his dick in. That's pretty much how it works. What's up, Stephen? What's up, Stephen Price? And the sad part about that is women can't seem to accept that whole entire concept or accept the fact that that's all they are and that's all they ever will be to a man, if that's what they're willing to do. And the sad part about that is, like I was saying at the beginning, women are nothing more than accessories in a relationship. Nowadays they bring no intrinsic value to you. And before anybody comes in here, I'll harken back to the TFM mic drop moment. Besides having a baby, what does a woman bring to the table that you can't get from a dog, your friends, a sex worker, and if you're into that, a doll? Like, think about that shit. Think about that shit. What does she bring to the table that you can't get from those three things, those three categories? And the sad part about that is it would be much easier to maintain those three categories than it would be to maintain a woman. It'd be way cheaper to maintain those three categories than to maintain a woman. And people always say, well, women don't really cost that much. Women cost a hell of a lot more money than you think. Women cost a hell of money. Because at the end of the day, if you're a man and you're working and she's a stay-at-home person, she's got to get her hair done. That's some money. she's got to have a nice ring. That's some fucking money. She got to have a nice engagement ring. So that's some fucking money off the bat. Then her wedding's got to be fucking extravagant. So that's even more money. Then, her wedding ring's got to be extravagant. So that's even more fucking money. So now she got an engagement ring, a wedding. Now she got an engagement ring, a wedding, and her fucking wedding ring. That shit alone, right there, will set you back anywhere between. Let's just put it this way: for the cost of a wedding ring, an engagement ring, and a wedding, you might as well take your ass out there and go buy yourself a pickup truck. You might as well go buy yourself the top of the line Toyota Tundra, or you might as well go buy yourself a Honda Ridgeline for the same price that you're going to pay for all that shit in the first couple of years of your life. Just the wedding and the wedding rings and the engagement rings alone, you might as well go out there and buy yourself a pickup truck. Or if you only own a pickup truck, go buy yourself a boat. You know how many golf clubs you can get with that price if you like golfing? Do you know how many? You know how much? You know how much of a? Do you know how much money you'll save on a personal trainer? Not marrying a woman. and just living your best life? Like, think about that shit. Or just a down payment on a house alone that you really don't want and you barely can afford, and you're going to be living paycheck to paycheck to pretty much pay off. Like, think about this shit. Because at the end of the day, she's not going to want to live in her apartment. No, oh no. She's going to want a house with a white picket fence. And she's going to want to have kids. And she's going to want more rooms than you fucking need in the fucking house, with more space than she fucking needs in the house. Why? Because she wants to show it off to her friends. Not because she actually loves you. She wants to basically show it off to everybody else. Because like I said in one live stream, she basically shows it off to the pastor, the pope, the bishop, the priest, the store guy, the store manager, her boss, your friends, her coworkers, your coworkers, Facebook, Snapchat, everybody else under the sun. Forget the fact that you got it for her. She has it, and she got to show it off to everybody. That's all it really is. There's nothing more than a centerpiece to show off to every fucking body. That's all a ring ever was. Because a ring's not really about love. It's about how she can show it off. That's all it the fuck is. How she can just be a show off. And the sad part about that, the faster you figure out as a man, the better off you'll be. This is typically why women aren't the prize for this very reason. What's up, Sifu? This is typically why women aren't the prize for this very reason, because at the end of the day, you're the one that's providing all of this shit. All of this shit. Because then you'll hear women say, well, women work too, but yeah, women aren't buying houses at the rate that men are buying houses. Therefore, let's just say a man's more likely to buy a house by himself if he lives by himself than a woman is to, put any money into buying a house. Women will stay in an apartment or a condo before they buy a house, and women are less likely to buy a condo for sure. They're more likely to stay in a house for all intents and purposes. I mean, an apartment. And the sad part about that is, at the end of the day, just because you have a job, what are you contributing to your household? It's one of those things you literally have to. It's one of those things you literally have to ask yourself as a human being. What are you contributing to your household? At the end of the day, what is it that you bring to the table and really contribute to the household? Like, think about that shit. Because if it's nothing, you can't think of nothing off the top of your head. You have no value to that guy. You're basically nothing more than a leech, or somebody you'd be no different than a family member that's a crackhead living off their family member to basically get by and get their drugs. That's pretty much what you are. Or you're basically, a leech, or a mooch, basically, or somebody that needs to be taken care of, which ends up being like a child. You're basically a big child. I hate to say it that way, but once you think about it, if you're not doing anything, you're not providing any value, you're pretty much providing a deficit, which makes you a child at the end of the day. Because at the end of the day, how many children actually provide financial sustenance to their house? Like, think about it. And you can't be like, well, these little kids that are actors and movie stars, 9 times out of 10, these actors and movie star kids probably had famous parents that already provided for the house, so they bring no value to the house at the end of the day. And if it's managed properly, 9 times out of 10, that's probably going towards their schooling, you would hope. Or any psychological things that they might suffer throughout the many years. Because the sad part about that is there's a lot of women that'll sit up here and say that they're the prize, or that they're the table, when they're nothing more than a Walmart poker card table. A Walmart fold-up poker card table is all they really are. And last I checked, I don't really shop at Walmart. I don't shop at Walmart for tables. I don't shop at Walmart for furniture. I shop at Robin Stuckey's. So I expect that woman to be a Robin Stuckey's level, some Robin Stuckey's level shit for all intents and purposes. Because she's not. It's not happening. I don't shop for my stuff cheap. I shop for shit to last and shop for shit to be comfortable at the same damn time. So I'm not willing to sacrifice comfort and value for something cheap. Because at the end of the day, if that's all you offer is the fact that you can have children, then you have no value. You really have no value in the least bit. Because if that's the only thing you can offer is sex and children, what are you really bringing to the table? And before all those women make videos talking about, well, we're valuable because of this, we're valuable because of that, and just if you're going to take sex off the table, you cannot have sex and we can have it elsewhere. Thank you for proving my point. You lack loyalty. You lack loyalty. Because at the end of the day, a woman that's not having sex with a man or is making a man wait is having sex elsewhere. You best believe it. She's not really saving it for you. There's somebody else knocking it out the fucking park. It is what it is. And because women have made videos really stating this shit and admitting to this shit, it pretty much paints women in a negative light. And the sad part about that is they don't even take down those videos. Those videos are still up, and there's certain women that'll hide the video or make it private for the fact that they know they fucked up, and they know they fucked up their whole entire value and devalue women by saying that shit. So there's a lot of women that are smart enough not to put up those videos for this reason. Because the sad part about that, at the end of the day, you really don't bring any value, and all you are is a net deficit. And if you're a net deficit, then what is it about you that makes you special for him to want to choose you? And if you can't figure that out yourself without making up bogus claims or being irate or mad, and you can't reflect on yourself, then what do you really have to offer? Put a lot of heartache and misery for a man. Because at the end of the day, no man wants to date somebody that's going to make their lives hard. If you're going to make a man's life hard, then, it's one of those things where it's like, well, there's no point in having you around. You're totally pointless. A good example of that is women who actually. A good example of women, like I love the women who are upfront about what they want in a relationship, because this is typically how I get kicked off of dating apps. And take notes on this shit. You'll get a woman that'll come across your profile, then jump in the inbox and start writing you messages like, yeah, how fast do you spoil your women? What? Yeah, I mean, how fast do you spoil your women? Because I would like gifts up front and this, that, and the other. Bitch, I barely know you. It's one of those things where it's like, I like women like that. At least they're honest about their shit, and I can pretty much turn them down at the door. If all women were like that, or all women were actually honest about their intentions or what they want, the world would be a better place, because at least men would have the option to pick and choose. Like if women would come up to you and go, yeah, I want to be with you and marry you for a long period of time, then divorce you and take after shit. How many men would actually, you know what? I like your prospects, but I'm going to have to pass on you and pick another candidate. Like, how many men do you think would actually do that? Like, there'd be a lot of men that actually would say, you know what, I'm going to have to pass on that. I'll call you, don't call me type thing. So it's one of those things where it's like, if a woman was actually honest about what she actually wants, then she wouldn't be in half the predicaments that she actually is in. Because the funny thing about women is they make short-term decisions, which is another topic of this stream. The sad part about that is women only make short-term decisions based on what they can get out of a man, not how much they love a man. It's what can a man do for him, for her, for all intents and purposes. It's typically how it works. The sad part about that is they believe that, it's like the fact that they're getting their own money. They believe that they should be taken care of no matter what. And their money's their money and your money's our money. It's pretty much how it works. That's pretty much your overall thoughts on it. Like, I should be taken care of, or if I make $100,000, I want the man to make this much more than me. So, first off, no. Secondly, no. Let's just keep it 100. First off, no. Secondly, no. Because at the end of the day, you can't demand something if you're not willing to put in the work yourself to do it yourself. That would be like me saying, I want a rich woman, but I want to be poor. How the hell does that work? How am I going to actually do anything to better myself at that point? Like, think about that shit. So it's like one of those things where it's like, you have to, as a human being, realize what your intrinsic value is. If you can't understand what your intrinsic value is, you're not going to make it in life at all, in the least bit. And that's the cold hard reality when it comes down to it. Because at the end of the day, it's like, you're not bringing any value to this. So why even put up with you, or why even deal with the person that brings zero to no value to the table, or brings zero to no value to their men's lives? Like, why? No, legit, why? And it's one of those things where it's like, as a man, you have to understand how it works, and to understand things about like the woman you're in a relationship with for all intents and purposes. Because it's one of those things where it's like, well, I got this, and what does she actually bring to the table? Because women will say, well, you get the beauty of having me around. Okay. If I wanted that, then I would just, order an escort and just have the girlfriend experience. And I don't even have to fuck her. And it'd be way cheaper to just take one out and basically have them dress up for a party. Hell, like a good example of that, you don't even need to escort for that shit. I actually know women who 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 sit at home and actually just ends up just being a girlfriend on your arm. All they do is just show up and experience the night. You don't even have to fucking pay them. It's basically nothing more for marketing for them, so they can actually rub elbows with people, so they can actually advance their career. And the sad part about that, all they have to do is dress up and look nice and get in a car, and you don't even have to pay for them. Besides buying a ticket for your plus one, basically, or VIP or RSVP, your plus one. That's it. Like, you don't have to do anything else for her. Usually the events pretty much are liquor flowing free, basically. So it's like you don't have to pay for shit besides the entry fee and the ticket. So it's one of those things where I can actually go find a woman. Like, I have a friend right now who I don't have to pay for that I could call up if I wanted to go to like a red carpet gala event or a black tie affair, and all she does is just drink and have fun, basically. I have a best friend where I can literally do that with and not have to worry about shit, and it's for free. Like, I can literally call her up right now and be like, yo, I got this red carpet gala going on, this, that, and the other, this, that, and the other. You down? When is it? This day, this day, this day, and that day. It's a red carpet gala, so that means I have to go get dressed this, that, and the other? Yeah, that means you have to go get dressed this, that, and the other. Okay, cool. I'm down. When are you picking me up? And that's exactly how it works. So it's one of those things where it's like, why would I have to, why pay for a woman when I can actually go get my best friend to look pretty? And the sad part about that, I ain't even got to pay for her. All I got to do is pick her up and take her to the gala. Half the time, she just drives to the gala in a separate car. So it's one of those things where it's like, why am I going to pay for somebody who's not worth my time or not worth my financial efforts? Why would I pay for somebody that's a net deficit? And the sad part about that, you as a man have to really be able to assess the situation and look at it for that reason, for what it is. Because at the end of the day, a woman's not with you because she loves you. She's with you because she loves what you can do for her. Especially if the relationship started off with you basically saying, you answering the question, what are we? The minute she asks you that question, this is typically her passing the blame or the responsibility onto you on what you are in a relationship. Because at the end of the day, what that means is she's not committing, you're committing. So the minute you open your mouth and say, I guess we're girlfriend and boyfriend, or something like that, she didn't have to commit to anything. You did all the committing for her. So therefore, she has she has all the ability to basically pull the plug at any given time for the fact that you're the one that chose this. This is typically how women get run that stupid line. I didn't choose you. You chose me. Plausible deniability. That's all it really is. And that's all it would ever be, is plausible deniability. And the sad part about that, a lot of men fall for this shit on a regular basis, not knowing that they're falling for this shit on a regular basis. A good example of that is, another good example of that is, choosy signals. The reason why there's choosy signals is so it can take the burden of proof, or the burden of responsibility off her and put it on you. This is typically why women don't really approach men too often, unless they're like super attractive or super rich. They're like, or super popular. There's a reason why women don't approach men, basically, because at the end of the day, if she's saying you choose these signals, she's basically passing responsibility onto you to come to her. Despite the fact that she's making all the signals and making all the choosy signs to basically, want to be with you, she's passing the responsibility off to you. That way she can say, you chose her, she didn't choose you. Despite the fact that she was sending you choosy signals. That's pretty much all it really is. It's a big con game at the beginning of the day when it comes to those things. And the sad part about that, a lot of men fall for this shit on a regular basis, or they well, man, she was hot and she's at the gym. Yeah, but who said you're in a relationship? You or her? Well, when she asked me the question, I said, we're obviously, girlfriend, boyfriend, this and the other. You fucked up right there. That's pretty much how that works. You fucked up right there by saying you are in a relationship. You got to make her say that shit, because at that point in time, she's got to do all the investing, and a burden of proof can't be off her, and a burden of guilt or responsibility can't be shifted to you for the fact that she's actually got to accept that, and she's actually got to come up out of the side of her mouth and actually say what you are. This is typically where a lot of men fuck up at the beginning of a relationship. When a woman asks you, what are we? You basically respond to her, I don't know, you tell me. Never commit to it first. Make her commit to it first. And then did not even say anything. Basically be very nonchalant about it after she answers you on what you are. Like, okay. Or just be like, yeah, whatever. Be very nonchalant about it, because at the end of the day, she's actually doing the actual talking. And if you ever notice with women would do one or two things when this actually happens. They'll try to do some mental gymnastics to get out of answering the question, or they'll basically say something simple like, well, I don't know yet, and this, that, and the other. I'm still trying to figure it out. Well, I'm gonna need you to figure it out, not hugging me on this couch. I'm gonna need you to figure it out outside that door. It's basically what you have to tell her. Like, no, I'm gonna need you to figure it out and then come back and let me know. And just tell her to bounce, basically. Because at the end of the day, it's one of those things where you as a man have to realize that this is the big con game that's going on with you and around you. And the longer you let it happen, the worse it's going to be. The worse is literally going to be the longer you let it go on, and the longer you let the con game go on. That's typically one of the many problems that a lot of men run into at the end of the day. So it's one of those things where you have to understand the whole entire parameters and concept of what you're getting yourself into. She's not there for you. She's there for herself. Especially if she can pose the question, what are we? If she can't answer that question herself, you're nothing. You are nothing. And that's typically how it works. But the sad part about that, a lot of men will fall for this question and answer this question and end up in a world of hurt wondering what happened or why it happened. This is typically how a lot of men get themselves into trouble or hang themselves. Because at the end of the day, it's pretty much all it really is a big-ass con game for men, basically, to capitulate. And like I said, I've already covered the can't take responsibility aspect of it. I've covered the short-term thoughts and why or why not, pretty much I covered it. The reason why women aren't deprived, I've already stated this, is because at the end of the day, once you look through history, a woman was never deprived. A woman was a peace offering. A woman was, everything else under the sun. Because at the end of the day, a good example of that was the Edo, Japan. Back when they had geishas, a lot of the geishas were basically there to pay their debt. The sad part about that, what they leave out about that is once they have your female family member there, you no longer have to pay them. She's paying them for you. So it's basically community service via a woman. And the sad part about that is they didn't drag men into this stuff. They drug women into this stuff. And it's simply how it worked. When you're in past your debt, you basically just give them one of your family members, one of your daughters, basically, or your wife, basically. And it's one of those things where, like, think about it. You gave up your wife. Think about how much money you're saving not paying for your wife. Or think about how much money you're saving not paying for a daughter. Like, really think about that shit. Really think about that shit. You gave up your wife, now you ain't got to spend all this money on your wife. You can pretty much tighten the bill when she's gone. So what part of that makes her a prize? If you can tighten the bill when she's gone in your household. And she's literally paying off your debt, so you ain't got to make any payments on that shit. She's pretty much paying it off herself because, It is what it is. Now, the sad part about that is, at the end of the day, she's nothing more than a bargaining chip. So it's one of those things where, like, if you lose her to something, you can pretty much always move on and find another wife if you only wanted one. Especially if you didn't have any children. You don't really have to explain that to the children anymore either. Like, it's very, very easy not to have to explain to the children that their mommy's gone. That's how I look at it. So it's one of those things where it's like, she's not the prize for that reason, because she's nothing more than a bargaining chip in Japan. And a lot of other cultures where she became, like, she worked for somebody, she became a bargaining chip, basically, and it wasn't a prize. There's a difference between a bargaining chip and a prize. You normally don't bargain away your prize. You bargain away things that are smaller, or you bargain away things that are equal or lesser value for all intents and purposes. Because at the end of the day, doing community service isn't a prize. Doing community service is some work. Typically, like being a geisha, it's not a prize. You're basically paying off my debt. I ain't got to pay any more things, and you're doing it for me. So now you became chattel at that point. Chattel? I think, yeah, for the most part, yeah, pretty much is what you became. And the sad part about that, this is typically why women aren't the prize, for this reason, for the fact that in history and now, you're not worth the paper that they print money on, to be honest with you. Because at the end of the day, you basically talk out the side of your mouth, you're very disrespectful, and you act like men. And the sad part about that, I hate to say it that way, but you do. If a man really wanted another man, he would just go gay. And that's 100. Like, if a man really wanted to date another man, he would just go gay. Nothing wrong with it if that's what you choose, but like I said, if a man really wanted to date somebody that's masculine or another man, he would just go gay. Like, legit. Just because you have tits, that don't change anything. There are a lot of men out there that cross-dress that have tits. There are a lot of transgenders out there, if you wanted to go that route, that, they can pretty much replace you. The sad part about that, it's sad in this day and age when cross-dressers actually look way better than women, regular ass women. Like, think about that shit. Like, I was showing a picture on Facebook with 5 men, and looking at the pictures, you would never know they're fucking men. They were 5 black men. You would never know they're fucking men. And unless you knew the full context behind the story of the actual picture, you would have never known they're men. You'd have been sipping on that picture and not even know. They look better than the women of this day and age, which is sad. How are men doing? How are men, grown ass men, out beautying something that's supposed to be beautiful? Like, think about this shit. You can't tell me you're the prize when you got men out doing your job better than you're doing your job. Like, and it's like, it's totally ridiculous how women overinflate their egos and don't even put in the work to actually keep up themselves. But a man always has to keep up himself, because it's just wrong for a man not to. So it's one of those things where it's like, if you're not going to upkeep yourself, why am I even with you? And the women will try to pull, well, you should accept me for me. Well, no, I don't have to. I don't have to accept you for you. Your attitude, yes. You changing your body, no. If I married you because you look this way, I don't have to accept you on the back end for looking another way. And the sad part about that, a lot of men do divorce women because they change. I've known a man, as a matter of fact, I know a rich man who divorced his wife because she cut her hair too short. She had a bob cut, so he's like, yeah, no, I can't do this somewhere. I want a divorce. Like, legit. She didn't even make it to the 5-year mark. He literally divorced on year 4. All because she got the bob cut. Despite the fact that it could grow back. He divorced her on the spot because he realized right then and there that she's going to do what she want to do, and there's no point in keeping her around. My friend right there is savage as hell. Like, he pretty much knew off the bat how the ship's going to pan out with this woman. If she's going to do this on a whim, just imagine what else she's going to do on a whim. Like, think about this shit. If she's willing to get a bob cut and not really consult on a bob cutter, not really, think about the feelings of other people, then what else is she capable of? And the sad part about that, if a woman could do that, she's capable of far more dangerous things in your life, keeping her around. So At the end of the day, if a woman is willing to actually go as far as to get a bob cut and not think about your feelings or anybody's feelings that she's in a relationship with and her own feelings, she's automatically selfish, and you need to get rid of her. That's typically how that works. This is typically why women aren't prizes, for the fact that they always fuck up, and they want you to co-sign on their fuck ups. It is what it is. Like, if you date her because she got long hair, you expect her to have long hair. Unless she gets cancer or something where she's going to lose all her fucking hair and go through chemo treatments and shit like that, you expect her to have long hair. That's pretty much how that works. So you never expect her to go short. That's pretty much how it is. And the sad part about that is a lot of women suck at this, and a lot of women will do shit to make it seem like you should be okay with their decision making. You should be okay with them gaining weight. You should be okay with them, gorging themselves. You should be okay for the fact that they don't want to take care of themselves. You should be okay that, you have to upkeep yourself, but she doesn't have to upkeep herself. Like, think about this shit. Really think about this shit. It's the cold hard reality of the day, and this is typically the type of women you have to deal with as a man. Like, you can't sit up here and tell me and convince me that you're a prize when, in fact, you're doing a lot of stupid shit that doesn't need to be done. Why do I have to accept failure? Why do I have to accept, lack of enthusiasm or lack of wanting to take care of yourself? When I have to, it's like, the sad part about this, if a man starts if a man starts to, gaining weight, and she can complain about it, but the minute she gain weight, you can't complain about it. Like, come on now, really, dude? This is a relationship. It's all about give and take. If you can't take constructive criticism, then you don't deserve to be in a relationship. It's basically like I say about social media. If you can't take constructive criticism on social media, or people being assholes to you on social media, then you shouldn't be on social media. Because there's always going to be that one person like me that's always going to give you the most honest, realest shit that's going to hurt your fucking feelings. And you can't be mad about it because you chose to put yourself in that position at the end of the day. Like I say, if you look a certain way, you are something to me. If you dress like a hoe, you are a hoe to me. And I'm not willing to talk to you. I'm not even willing to pay you attention. And the sad part about that is, like, I've always had this thing where even if I'm in public and there's a woman sitting between me and my friend, I will look around her like she don't fucking exist, or she's like some random ass pillar blocking the line of sight of my friend. I don't pay attention to women unless they say something intelligent. Intelligent or thought-provoking. That's typically the only time I pay attention to women, when they say something intelligent or thought-provoking. And it's one of those things where it's like, you as a man have to really, put in the work to figure this out or do this shit. If you're not willing to do this shit, you can't be shocked when she does you wrong. You can't be shocked when you're left holding a bag. You can't be shocked when you're ass out, cash out at the end of the day. Because at the end of the day, you literally chose that path and course that you chose. So you can't be shocked or mad when shit doesn't go down properly. Especially if you notice all the signs, and you notice all the abuse, and you notice everything about her that made her this way. You can't be mad about this shit, and you can't really call her a prize. Because at the end of the day, if a woman was really a prize, she would bring more to the table besides just pussy and having children. Because at the end of the day, if you wanted pussy, you can go out and get it from anybody and anywhere, from any random woman. If you just want pussy. If you want a child, all you have to do is put out an ad on Craigslist or in a newspaper saying that you want a surrogate so you can have a child with them. And all you have to do is just pay for it. And the sad part about that, paying for a surrogate to carry your child is mad cheaper than having a woman in the house with you. Like, think about that shit. Having a surrogate to have your child is way cheaper than having a woman in your household. It is what it is. Because all she has to do is basically show up at the appointments, and that's fucking it. That's all she has to do is show up at the appointments. That's it. And the sad part about that, she all you have to do is show up at deployments and make sure her diet's proper and make sure that she's following all the regulations of her pregnancy, and she's perfectly fine. That's all it really is. You ain't got to do much but pay for everything else and pay her for having your child. That's it. And it's way cheaper than having a wife. It's way cheaper, literally, than having a wife. The sad part about that, getting a surrogate is cheaper than having a wedding, paying for a engagement ring, and paying for a wedding, engagement ring, and a wedding ring. Literally cheaper than that. That's the cold hard reality behind it. Because the sad part about that is, what's up, MGTOW Lucid Dream? Because the sad part about that, at the end of the day, you have these options in this day and age, and there are many people who are willing to actually do this if you pay them. Hell, there's people that's willing to do it for free. Sadly. But at the end of the day, you probably want to go with the person you have to pay, basically, for the fact that there's more of a legal contract with that than doing it for one woman that's willing to do it for free. Yeah. Like, literally, you can pay escorts to do shit for you that, and it'd be cheaper in the long run than it would be to just have a living, because at the end of the day, if you have a living woman, she's nothing more than a living escort. Because you have to pay bills around her, which ends up being more than you're willing to do. You have to pay the bills around her because she's going to use up the water, the gas, the electric when you're not home. So you got to pay for all that shit any fucking way. And then on top of that, you got to make sure there's somebody in account for her so she can go shopping, or do shit with, or spend money on random shit that probably doesn't need to have money spent on it. So she's going to be buying knickknacks and shit that you don't really need, or shit that she actually likes that you don't like anyway. You basically have to accept the shit. So why have a woman around when you actually got to when you got to accept the fact that she's going to buy the shit that you don't like? She's going to spend more money on a bed that she likes that you're not going to be comfortable in. She's going to spend more money on a couch just because it looks good and it's probably not all that comfortable. She's going to spend more money on furniture because she wants to show it off to her friends. So now you're going to pay more money than having an escort. Hell, if you actually just take that alone, all the furniture you're going to put in your house and all the remodeling that you're going to do to your house, you're going to pay more for that than you did for having a surrogate. You're going to pay more for her to nest in your house than you would for a surrogate. And that's just keeping it 100. That is literally keeping it 100 right there. So at the end of the day, my final thoughts on this is women aren't a prize. Women really don't serve an intrinsic value to men. I hate to say it that way, but it is what it is. Unless they're actually really putting in the work, they serve no intrinsic value to men. Because women aren't really putting in any work in a household. They're not really putting in any work at all in their relationships, let alone in their household. They're basically walking around like you basically have to accept them for them. Half them can't cook. So, and there's another thing when it comes to women that I meant to say that I kind of sort of left out. If you can't cook as a woman, how the hell can I trust you as a mother of my children if you can't even fucking feed yourself? If all you can do is basically order out or order food out, how can I trust you as a mother of my children to be able to supply my children with sustenance? Or should I say, our children with sustenance? So therefore, if you can't cook, you're not mommy material at all. If you can't cook, you shouldn't even be thinking about being a mother. You should probably think about taking up cooking classes. Legit. Like, it's one of those things where it's like you literally, if you can't cook, you literally provide no value to the relationship if you can't cook. And if you're not cleaning, you definitely provide no value to the relationship. Like, if you're not really cleaning anything, you say you sit around all day and you do work, you come home to the same shit laying all over the fucking place, or the shit looking the same, you'd provide no value. Because at that point in time, for a man to actually think that, the question is this household safe if she's actually not cleaning this household? How many germs I got to really worry about, or how many unsafe things would be out there for children to actually swallow, catch, fall on, and or hurt yourselves with, or for any purposes. Because the sad part about that is a house can be messy. 9 times out of 10, when you have children, it's going to be even more messier, and you got to worry about accidents happening in your household because she wasn't paying attention or she didn't pick up after herself and or the children. So now you got to worry about your children slipping and falling into a fucking table, or slipping and falling into a counter or a door, or a table leg, or a corner, or electrocuting themselves, all because she has poor management of the household. Like, think about this shit. This shit is really real. Like, you can't date somebody who manages their household poorly. You can't date somebody who can't cook. Because what does that say about her character is she can't. You want to get married, you want to have children, but you can't even take care of yourself. What makes me believe that you can actually take care of some children if you can't even take care of yourself? Let's just keep it 100. Just because you have a dog doesn't mean you can take care of things. That just means you can know how to open a can and pour it into your dog's bowl, or open a bag, scoop it out, and pour it into your dog's bowl. That has no value to me for children. You can't scoop out shit. You can't scoop shit out of a bag and feed your children unless it's junk food. You can't open up a can and feed children out of a can cold, because 9 times out of 10 you probably got to cook that shit, because of the shit in the can. An actual can itself has impurities. So you literally have to cook that shit down and cook that shit off so you can actually be edible. That's typically how this shit works. So if she's not going to provide value, or she doesn't really appear to be a safe haven for children, don't marry her. It's totally pointless. She's not the prize. She's just an accessory. And that's pretty much all women are in this day and age, is an accessory. They provide no intrinsic value. They can't cook. They won't clean. They got a smart ass mouth. They don't take care of themselves. They're basically nothing more than accessories. What you want is the best possible accessory that you could possibly get in this day and age. Women are nothing more than accessories. That's all they are. That's all they will ever be. And that's all it really is. Women are accessories in this day and age. Now, are there women that are more than just accessories? Yeah, there are. But do you really feel like looking for that woman? Do you really feel like weeding through all the bullshit to find that woman? Do you really feel like putting in the work to find some woman like that? Like, because you really got to weed through a lot of bullshit to find these women. The question is, do you feel like putting in the work to do it? If the answer is no, then it's not worth your time at all, in the least bit, to date anyone. Because like I said in another portion of his last stream, his podcast, is women are more likely to cheat. Just because they don't get caught, that don't mean they didn't cheat. Women are more likely to opt out of a relationship early, psychologically, and women are more likely to drop the ball in their own relationships than try to pass the blame off on a man because she dropped the ball in the relationship. Then on top of that, women are more abusive in relationships than men are. Unequivocally more abusive in relationships than men are. Women will sit up there and try to hit you and smack you in the face or push your head and do simple stupid shit like that you normally wouldn't let another man do to you. So I look at it like this. If you're dating a woman that's willing to do that to you, I say you best have your best friend or your sister on deck to knock her the fuck out. Because at the end of the day, if she can do that, that means she's gotten through life skating and she needs a reality check. Real shit. Because if a woman can put her hands on you, you should have a sister around to put their hands on her, or a friend around to put their hands on her. That's simply or a family member to do the same damn thing too, for all that matter. A female family member that's willing to do the same thing. So it's one of those things where it's like, If she puts her hands on you, she has no respect for you. It's one thing if you're play fighting. It's another thing if she's actually hauling off and hitting you, smacking your head and pushing your head. That's not play and that's not love. And you need to drop that bitch. It's pretty much how it works. So it's one of those things where you have to weigh all the pros and cons to understand the full graphic of what the fuck you got yourself into for all intents and purposes. Because, like I say, not all relationships are relationships. Half of motherfuckers in relationships are in situationships, or half the motherfuckers in relationships are in arrangementships. For all intents and purposes, that think they're in long-term relationships, they're in long-term arrangementships or long-term situationships. And the sad part about that, most times they're in a situationship. The situation is, like, especially for men who live with women, is you don't got no house, so now you have to live with this woman. That's a situationship. Or the situationship is, she lost her house, now she's living with you. Or she lost her apartment, now she's living with you. Or she mismanaged her money, now she's living with you. Or she's living with you because she's seen what she can provide you have, and she wants a part of that. So now you're in a situationship or an arrangership based on her own liking. That's typically how that works. So it's one of those things as a man, you have to realize that you are the prize. And you are the most valuable thing in a relationship. Like I said, you hear no man ever unless they're a gay man, you hear no man ever saying they're happy to walk down the fucking aisle. That's a woman thing. And the sad part about that, women need somebody else to walk down the aisle. They have that special day. Despite the fact that you got women marrying the Eiffel Tower pillar and train trusses and bridges and shit like that, women still need another living human being to have their special day. Because at the end of the day, if you realize those women aren't having those extravagant weddings because they ain't trying to pay for those extravagant weddings. It's simply how it works. So you'll see them show up in a wedding dress or some low budget cut version of a wedding dress to basically marry a bridge or a train station or a fucking Eiffel Tower or anything, any inanimate object, let it be a building or a plane. They're not showing up all decked out in the garb that they normally will if a man was walking them down the aisle because they have to pay for that shit. So therefore, they go to some store and buy something that resembles a wedding dress, and they basically wear it to have their special day with that inanimate object. It's pretty much how it works. And the sad part about that is, think about that. If you weren't paying for the wedding, what type of wedding would she actually have? If you're not paying for that wedding, and her parents aren't paying for that wedding, and your parents aren't paying for that wedding, what type of wedding would she normally have? It's basically like a good analogy of that, or a good visceral thought of that, is if you go to the bar and you buy everybody rounds, and you tell the bartender what they're actually drinking, you're going to have a few people who are going to try to upgrade on your dime. That's why you typically tell them, buy them whatever. That's why you typically tell them, buy them what they have in front of them. Don't buy them what they have aspirations on buying because they can't afford it. That's typically what you do. Because the sad part about that, if you say buy them whatever they want, they're going to go with the most expensive shit that they can't afford. That's typically how that works. They're drinking budget beers and shit like that, or drinking pitcher beers. Then all of a sudden, as soon as you offer drinks, now this heifer wants Patron or Hennessy or Cavassier or something expensive or that's very, very top shelf that they normally wouldn't buy their damn self because they can't afford it. That's pretty much the same concept for women. That's pretty much all women in a nutshell. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are some women that will spend money on their actual drink. But the sad part about that is, the question is, would they buy your drink? Your drink, if they had to pay for it? And if the answer is no, then they're not worth your time. Or if that's not something that they normally drink because they don't have the money, are they even worth it to even buy a drink for them in the first place? Because think about that. The minute you offer to buy somebody a drink, motherfuckers go for what they got in front of them to other shit. Because it's typically where you got to tell the bartender, buy them what they're drinking now, or buy them what they're drinking, not what they want to drink, what they are drinking. Because if they're not drinking that, you don't have to buy that shit. And that's typically how women work. Hell, there's men that do this shit too. They come in broke as hell to the bar, and as soon as you offer a drink, they're trying to get like Cavassier, E&J. I mean, not the top shelf shit, E&J. They're trying to go with the Hennessy or the Crown Royal and shit like that, or the Remy Martin and shit like that. Meanwhile, nigga, you was just drinking a beer, a cheap ass beer that costs cheaper than the beer that I normally drink. So at the end of the day, and my final thoughts is typically, this is typically what women do. This is typically what a lot of women and men men nowadays do to basically get over on people. So you literally have to ask yourself, is it worth it? Are they worth my time, effort, and money? Are they worth any of that stuff? Because at the end of the day, you can get money back, but you can't get that time back at all. You can get your money back, but that time never comes back. You can't restock time or you can't replenish your time. It's just that simple. So when you lose time or you waste time on something, that time is never coming back to you. The only thing you could hope is you learn something from that wasted time or that wasted effort. It's the only thing you can really hope for. It's sad, but it's so true. But this is your boy Tico Trend. You have a blessed day. Be good to yourselves. Treat yourselves like milk you don't, but spoil yourselves. Always improve upon yourself and improve yourself to be the better version of yourself. And never let up and always be willing to improve. Y'all have a blessed day. Be good. Thank y'all for coming to the podcast. Adios.